Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today is the day after race day, and by that I mean 5K, in case anyone else misunderstood or misinterpreted what I was saying. It might be that it's kind of like race day because of our current elections. I did and have experienced recent situations that seem like they were race related, and I'm not going to go into those details because we all know, especially if we come at it from a perspective of being on the other side of the fence, we all know that different demographics receive different types of treatments. And just to put that into perspective, I'm not a female, I don't look small, and I don't look like I'd be pleasant to tangle with in many cases. And so a lot of people seem to respond to me differently than, for an example, my female counterparts or people who are smaller than me who, and I don't mean that in a demeaning way. I mean, we're all different sizes and shapes and genders and all that. And some people in certain circumstances have been taken advantage of, belittled, and discredited in different ways. In a lot of cases, it's because of bullying. So not long ago, someone asked why any marathoners would try to circumvent any other marathoners' progress and so forth. And they were asking it kind of in a way where, they were trying to be serious, but seriously, they were also trying to sabotage some of my posts and some of the things I was saying here. And it might not come across as clear to the person who can't discern between truth and fiction, but for many people who are hearing this, friends and family included, I've recognized that there are plenty of family that I have who won't speak up. They won't type anything in these pages. They don't want to be associated with such crazy thoughts that, we should get what we pay for. And if someone doesn't include something that you paid for, that's something that the business should be held accountable for. They don't want to go into those prospects of having a conversation in public, because then they might be frowned upon by someone who wants to sabotage someone else's progress. In this particular instance, the disjointed conversation that I want to have has a lot to do with this page. Again, it's called YouTube, and this is my page where I get to talk about whatever I want to talk about. And so I'm doing that without any kind of difficulties, and I'm making a lot of progress with my health in ways that I never had thought were possible in the past, in ways that help me to express myself confidently in all aspects of life. So what I'm training for is more like warrior training than it is, just for trying to go through a marathon. And a lot of people who can accomplish a marathon are warriors because they have the endurance and fortitude to have trained for something so dauntingly difficult. A lot of other people who haven't done it and who look at these things as frivolous, extracurricular activities that have nothing to do with real life might, of course, inevitably subscribe to prescriptions and slowing down and aging gracefully, hopefully, but that's a choice. And all of these choices are things that we can do to help ourselves, to help others around us. The weird thing is that the more I, let's call it, encroach upon the boundaries of becoming healthier, the more I get close to that, the more challenging it becomes with people who want to sap your energy. And in some cases, marathoners will do weird things against other marathoners. Like I saw a clip of someone running behind someone, in a marathon, if someone's running right in front of you, or even when you're driving on the highway, if an 18-wheeler is driving right in front of you and you follow in their jet stream, you're not going to waste as much fuel breaking that wind in front of you. And so if someone's behind you, letting you break wind for them, they're pretty much going to receive the the benefit of you breaking wind in front of them. And so I'm saying that purposefully in a specific way for a specific person. And I know that they understand, because I already know where the thumbs downs are coming from. I already know that there are plenty of people who understand and also are giving thumbs ups to these comments and to these insights, because they know it's true. And we all know the difference between truth and fiction. The only thing is that some of us can't see that other people can actually see past the veneer. And so today I wanted to say that yesterday was race day, and today I actually got to do another 5K, and this time I got to do so using something that was bestowed upon me, gifted to me in a way where I never would have expected it or anticipated it. And so, yeah, I might have another pair of shoes to showcase at some point in time. Maybe I'll even do it in this video. Either way, this journey has been interesting and also frivolous, because everything that I'm doing is almost like an offset to something else that I've done in the past. Just as a matter of circumstance, if I was able to have been healthy for my whole life, if I started out eating fruits and vegetables and nuts and legumes and healthy lean protein and this, that, and the other, and if I did that normally over the course of time, well, you know, my cholesterol would be normal, my blood pressure would be probably great, my weight never would have been out of round, so to speak, or fuller into round, however you want to word it. And I wouldn't have to have taken on the journey where I felt like the only option I had was to work all the harder to try and get healthier again. If I had done, you know, upper body workouts all the time, and if I could, you know, do push-ups from, you know, grade school through high school, through college, through basically my adulthood, then my health would be fine. And I wouldn't need to have tried to rely on the medical industry and the prescriptions that oftentimes come in one-time use plastic bottles and all of the other ensuing one-time use products, syringes, gloves, swabs, you know, on and on and on. And most of the people listening to this channel, of course, understand. You understand, and you understand. You understand. You get the picture that I'm painting. The trouble is that once we start to acknowledge these things, then we start to recognize there's an accountability aspect. And when we start to look at accountability, sometimes we want to point the finger back to someone else. And so getting back to that question about marathoners wanting to sabotage other marathoners, you know, the person running behind the other person who's breaking wind for them isn't really sabotaging anything. But if the person in the front keeps looking behind and going, you know, why are you on my flank? What are you doing? And they like cross the road, and then the person behind them crosses the road to stay behind them and continue to agitate them. In a way, that could be a mental game. But in my mind, you know, if you're strong enough to just keep going and not really worry about who's behind you, then there's a duality in the concept of having someone in your proximity. You know, you can accept it or you can try to shake them free. But no matter what, when someone is standing right behind you that close, they can still stab you in the back, you know? And I know that, you know, marathoners normally wouldn't do something like that. But when people are so egocentric that they can't get past the argument, when they can't see the truth, when they can't hear the truth, actually, when they can't hear the truth because they're so tied up in trying to prove a point, then basically you have a situation, a circumstance where you can recognize that people sometimes aren't looking out for the best interests of one another. They just want to impose their not so affectionate opinions about certain things. So yesterday, and this might be 2 days ago now based on when this will post and when that post that I'm about to talk about has occurred, but in yesterday's post, I talked about a squirrel, Peanut the squirrel. Peanut the squirrel was a beloved squirrel. I hardly know the whole story. I mostly saw the headlines, and I see the headlines to a lot of things, and some things make me extremely sad, and I actively cry about some of the things I see. And many of the men in my circles might basically kind of discount what I'm saying. Many people in general might look at someone like me and think, oh, well, that's just some, old guy who doesn't have any feelings. And they might really misjudge who I am. I'm a very, let's call it sensitive person. And I'm sensitive enough to have been called a lot of different things, and in the past I really wouldn't stand up for myself because that's how I was brought up. My father put me down quite a bit. Some of the friends I had would put me down. People would make fun of all kinds of things about me. In primary school, it was race. It was always race because I was in a school where I was lucky to be in that school because of an income discrepancy. My parents didn't make enough money to have been billed a full amount to put me in a school that I was in, and the school I was in was attended heavily by well-moneyed people, and those well-moneyed people included children of bankers, children of superstars, and like for an example, our NBA team here in this city. And so I got to go to school with a lot of people who had a lot. And then there was me who basically I didn't have as much. I had everything I needed. And the most important thing I had that I needed was a parent who loved me very much. Now, I say that singularly because I don't know that my other parent really cared about me all that much, but one parent loved me very much and was put into a situation where in order to provide, they had to go to work full-time and put me in the care of someone else part-time, in addition to, of course, me going to school. And then during summertime was when I was put into the care of another let's call it another entity. And in that household, things happened that were traumatic. Things happened that were basically abuse. And some of those things back then, as you've recognized with some of the cases that have come out today, with some of the powerful men who have been put on trial, and then only to have the question surface, well, why didn't the victim say something sooner? Some of those things were said back then, but back then, most of the actions were to cover up what was happening, to pretty much to hide the trouble that was occurring. And so in yesterday's race, I talked about on yesterday's running day, I talked about Peanut the squirrel. I talked about COVID. I talked about how we had all these one-time use things happening and all these policies that people followed and abided by. And I only kind of glossed over the surface of the conversation, which pretty much was saying that we have a very wasteful, very hurtful society that is ill right now, and that is kind of putting one another down, even without knowing it in some cases, and that some of the remnants from things that I was talking about, like COVID, were still on the ground. Like in the video, I showed a plastic glove. People glove up when they go to give injections to one another for that special jab that many people have gotten multiple instances of. And all of those things, including the masks that we've had to wear, some of us are still wearing masks without wearing a mask, right? Including those masks, have been all over the places that I've been visiting. So today itself, when I got to take on my other 5K, I mostly noticed just trash, regular straws, cups, wrappers, Band-Aids, all these different things that are one-time use. And I suggest that if we were able to organize, instead of just organized runs where we're getting t-shirts that are maybe one, the first time they're being used, one-off production t-shirts for that day, if we were able to instead maybe forego all of that and maybe pick up the trash along the route, maybe these big giant organized events could be a little bit more productive for everybody, instead of everyone going out and getting, medals and shirts. And again, like I said in the video that I made the other day, everyone loves participation medals. What if all the trash that was picked up could be melted down, recycled, and purposed into some of those things that we get at the end of these efforts? I don't want to call it a race, because right now, by this point in time, we should be trying to find a way to minimize the fueling that it takes to accomplish what it is that we're accomplishing, and even to allocate many of the products that we're using back into the things that are used for the typical things that we do. Reducing what we do primarily is going to be the best alternative to everything. And so I went recently without food for 40 days and nights, without eating, and I fasted. And that's something that changed me miraculously. My blood pressure went from hypertensive crisis to back to within normal ranges. And that was something that I hadn't experienced. I hadn't had normal blood pressure since early in high school. And to regain that from an extended period of fasting was true, actionable, effort that resulted in something. I lost some weight. I regained some of that lost weight, and then my weight leveled out at a pretty healthy weight for right now, for what it is that I'm doing, and also to allow me some wiggle room, literally and figuratively. So why would a marathoner try to sabotage some other marathoner? Well, there's a lot of different reasons. Jealousy, greed, egocentric, abusive tendencies, abandonment issues. I mean, there's so many different things that go into why someone would want to actively harm someone else. But when we look at it and start thinking about how sometimes the very food we eat, the very produce, the very animals that we take and consume, sometimes when we recognize that we don't even give a second thought to them, then we start to realize that we're not really grateful. And it might be that some guy like me might say some scathing things that are basically just the truth, that cause us to inside to whimper, to go, oh man, that's true. And sometimes we might want to throw some shade on something like that. And so when we decide to throw shade on other people's efforts, whether we're fellow marathoners or fellow YouTubers, etc., and so forth, then we begin to see a really big picture that doesn't even present just a clue. It presents a fully painted picture of truth. And those truths are hard to unsee once we've seen them. And so my request, if I could make a cohesive request on this page, would be to ask you if you know any industries that would like to green up their production value, in other words, to reduce what it is that we're putting into the equation as a business. And because this doesn't really seem to exist in the fully functional way that it could exist, if there are any businesses that have an opportunity to allow someone as critical as myself to provide scathing insight, basically just true insight into the critical underpinnings of what our business is doing in terms of wasting and how much money we can save by not being so wasteful, please contact me. I definitely have a need to earn a significant income. I would love to continue feeding the birds here in the backyard. I've shared videos that show the birds and say, hey, if you'd like to contribute to the bird feed, please click on the description and at least submit or consider submitting $1 or more towards that cause. The contributions are greatly appreciated, including things like, for an example, the shoes that I've received. They're not sponsored. They're not something that I'm able to even hardly declare as far as what it was that brought about these opportunities. But they are greatly appreciated, and I know how much wastefulness goes into these items. And so, yeah, okay, I'm receiving shoes and I'm running and I'm getting healthy, but I also can just do normal things like go around, clean the bird feeders, clean the bird baths, replenish the bird feed, replenish the water, tend to the yard, and basically I could just tend to what it is that's right here while actively regaining my health. And I do that because everything that I do is in the name of bringing joy to others, not really myself. But sometimes in so doing, I have to point out something when parents themselves wouldn't even point those things out to their own children, let alone themselves. Like if I saw someone driving on the wrong side of the road, someone should bring attention to that. And if it's not going to be an immediate visitation from a police officer, and if there's an opportunity to communicate with that person, I'm going to try to do my best to do that. I'm only mentioning that because earlier on the trails that happened, there were some parents and a lot of kids on the wrong side of the trail, even though there are signs and there are reasons for being on one side of the trail, especially with the abundance of bikers that were going, people on bicycles who were going through the trail systems. If you knew how the passing situation happened and how many different kerfuffles would occur when people are on the wrong side and not paying attention, then you yourself would probably agree, especially if you were the traffic trying to go in a direction and you were hindered. So for a lot of people, I think there's just never been any kind of hindrances. I even posted something about wearing clothes that were used, and someone said, that's gross. You need to know your audience. Who's going to wear used clothes? And I just thought that was one of the most almost kind of, if I was running a marathon talking about how to be more efficient in our world, well, that marathoner who was commenting about how gross it was to wear other people's clothes, clothes that have been worn and dirtied by other people, that would be the same as a marathoner trying to interfere with my own marathon effort. That would be the person behind me that was trying to, agitate me by taking advantage of me. What was the way I was putting it? Breaking wind in front of them. And so, it's just one of those things. It's like we can look at it from a lot of different ways, and we can look at it from, well, what if that person who was allowing me to be the pacer would switch off every so often and be the pacer for me? Until we really help each other out, we're going to start to recognize that some of us are really not helping at all. We're just taking. And that's the truth. And so the more that we take without even being grateful for it, the more we accumulate. Now, in today's world, there are people that get paid as professional declutterers. They get paid handsomely. I know I have in my circles people who have closets and attics full of things and garages full of things that don't allow them to park their cars in the garage. Attics full of things that are aging quickly because of the exacerbated temperatures during the hot summers that we have here in this state where I'm at. I know people who have closets full of just stuff. I've cleaned houses from start to finish where there was so much stuff. And in all cases, I was able to declutter that stuff without any extreme difficulty because I'm pretty efficient at getting work done. And in almost every case, even of helping someone to explore new places, that they hadn't explored before. I haven't really been paid for those efforts. And in some cases recently, I've shown that my pictures were in museums and in hotel chains that are not really a hotel chain, but that are owned by National Park Services or whoever they partner with. And the work that I've done has been covered up, and I haven't been paid for those works either. I've shown those things. I've shown that I've been shorted, and I've voiced my my what would you call it? My contention. I've voiced my concerns, and I've been met with pretty much people who would ridicule and mock me and say, you know, you're coming from a place of struggle. Well, it's, life is not all that easy for most of us. So for the entitled silver spoon person out there who keeps saying these things and who's upset about wearing used clothes or even picking up after other people, the fact is that, there are many instances of each of us having dropped stuff in other people's path where we create more work for one another. And I recognize that, and I'm presenting these things, asking, for help to clean up these situations. With or without your help, I'm going to keep trying and doing my best to raise awareness for these topics. And it sure would help if there was a monetary corresponding aspect that went with this effort. So with all of that in mind, please, do your best to consider what it is that I've voiced here. And whatever happens, I hope you're having a great day. Until next time, peace, love, and all that old school stuff.